Hello, everyone. Welcome to the FTX podcast. It's my pleasure to have here with me today Valdez K. Russell, our Vice President of Social Corporate Responsibility and Communications. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me, Tristan. This has been a long anticipated moment, so I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, a long time coming. For those that don't know, Valdez has been someone that has facilitated a lot of the things that we've been able to do here in the Bahamas and a big contributor to everything that has been built so far. To kick things off, Valdez, would you mind giving a brief introduction of yourself?
Yes. So my name's Valdez, and I like my name. Everyone should like their name. But what makes it important to me is that it's memorable. And being memorable is what matters, particularly as you try to help people to be more and to do more. I am from the Bahamas. I've lived here I grew up here. I studied abroad. I returned. And then after some work in education and some leadership stuff and public relations, an opportunity presented itself with FTX. And here I am a year later after being engaged, still pushing the needle for us to do more in this space from the Bahamas.
Awesome. Yeah. And before we get into all FTX stuff, because there's a good bit to chat about there, I'd love to hear how you got involved in policy and politics in the first place and why that was a calling for you.
Right. So in all fairness, I don't consider myself to be in politics, but this is what happened. I have a good background in communications, and I was engaged for different government relations. And as a result of that kind of skill set, I made tremendous relationships and connections. I built those, and they've been sustained over time. And so I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to pick up the phone and call individuals. They're moderately pleased to hear from me, and they offer some degree of helpfulness to get things done. And so my journey has been through the communication side, helping individuals and organizations to tell their story and just trying to do right so that it makes a significant and positive difference.
And, being from Bahamas and you, as you said, you studied abroad, but then you came back. What are some of the ways that, other Bahamians you think could interact with the foreign world and have like these sort of synergies between Bahamas, United States, and other countries? Are there like any words of advice you could give?
Yeah. I think that it's important for us to appreciate that the world is a fairly small place. We were in Lisbon, Tristan, you would remember, and you introduced me to a number of people. And then I went on to another event, and those people were there who introduced me to more individuals. And recently, everyone descended on the Bahamas for Crypto Bahamas, and the network grew and expanded. So here's the advice. Take the time to introduce your best people to other great minds and keep the community growing. And then take the opportunity as a Bahamian, as anyone around the world, to understand and harness the power of social media, whether it is commenting on content that is on Twitter, whether it's reaching out to individuals who you admire on LinkedIn. You want to be immersed in this idea of building relationships now because they're going to prove invaluable later. And the final nugget is understand what your circle looks like today, because that's going to be a reflection of your net worth tomorrow.
Got it. Thanks for sharing that. All right, let's jump into some of this FTX stuff. So maybe tell us the story of how you got in touch with us and perhaps some of the stuff that we're doing here in the Bahamas.
Right. So I suppose I'm very fortunate in that FTX got in touch with me. And so we kicked off In Florida, we opened the FTX Arena, as you would remember that triumphant moment just about a year ago. And at the end of that event, Daniel Friedberg, one of our FTX lawyers, was walking out of the space. He was just celebrating the fact that we had signed this deal. And he passed my colleague, Miles Gallagher, with the Superlative Group. And he said, "We're going to be growing in the Bahamas and Ireland." And Miles looked at Daniel, and Miles looked at Dan and said, "I've got a guy for you in the Bahamas." And a few weeks later, I was on a call with Dan, and I was also on a call with Adrian on April 9th. And ever since that time, I have been graciously welcomed into the FTX family, and that's been my connection. And so FTX reached out to a colleague, and once that had happened, I was identified as the guy, and I assisted as best as I could to ensure that we got our license here in the Bahamas. And here we are months later, just preparing to build our global headquarters here in the Bahamas.
Actually, that's very interesting, right? Because a lot of companies are thinking about moving to the Bahamas now that this has become a crypto-friendly jurisdiction. Could you talk a little bit about some of the ways that these companies could foster positive relationships with the government here?
Yeah, so I think that every company has a responsibility anymore to be a part of the cultural fabric of wherever they choose to be, whether that's in the Bahamas or in another jurisdiction. The question that we should be asking is, how do we reflect? How do we present ourselves as good corporate partners? So my first tip would be, of course, to find someone locally who wants to see you in the country and will be your champion. Once you've found that champion, take the opportunity to look around and be immersed in the culture, understand the kinds of causes that are important to the community, connect with people who want to see a change, and then deliver and execute results, whether that's a contribution of your time, a contribution of your talents, or a contribution of your treasures. All of that makes a huge difference in how we show up to be a good corporate citizen.
And how is the Bahamian government structured from a financial perspective? In the US, we have the CFTC and the SEC. How does it work here?
Yeah, so here in the Bahamas, we have the Securities Commission of the Bahamas, and they are the regulator. They would be the entity that issues the approval for us to get a business license and be here in the country. And so our process is, it is an intensive process to receive your license, but that is to ensure that when you come into the Bahamas to do business, you are legitimate, you are invested, and you look forward to a long-term kind of engagement that will contribute to a better Bahamas and the world.
And let's say a company gets their license and they start relocating here. What does it look like to get working visas for, say, Bahamian foreigners? Or excuse me, for foreigners that want to work here?
Yeah, so for individuals who want to live, work, and play in the Bahamas, there are a number of things to bear in mind. The first thing is you have to go through that vetting process, and you have to be able to verify that the job that you want to do, there aren't suitably qualified Bahamians to do. Now, there are a number of pieces that come into play with that kind of engagement. And so your CEO, your CCO, and other key roles, as a result of being in the Bahamas, you can certainly bring those individuals with you. But you would just work closely with your legal counsel, you would work closely with the Department of Immigration, and you would state your case. You would put together your application, and then you would just apply so that you can have the best members of your team living and working here from the Bahamas. So it is a process that requires a little bit of time and attention, but in the end, it's all well worth it so that you can be a resident here in the Bahamas and supporting your company.
Got it. Perfect. All right, cool. Let's switch to some of this FTX stuff because there's actually a ton of it going on. Where do we even start? Maybe let's start with Crypto Bahamas. I would love to hear a little bit about your experiences with it. I know you were pretty involved with organizing it. What did you think of it?
Yes. So Crypto Bahamas can best be described now as the premier cryptocurrency conference in the world. And I take the liberty of saying that because you and your viewers have participated in other experiences. But what made Crypto Bahamas so unique was that we infused the flavors of the Bahamas, we discussed future trends, we added to the mix incredible thought leaders from the global landscape and the local environment. We brought them together in a beautiful space at Bahamar, and what that resulted in was an unbelievable, unforgettable experience, positioning us as the premier event for the crypto community.
And these will continue, right? This was just year one of many.
Yeah, so I think that this inaugural event afforded us the opportunity to know that we can do it. And I look forward to welcoming more visitors back in 2023 when we do it again, because it was such an extraordinary event.
Got it. Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Actually, it was really nice to see so many of the people that, as you were saying, are in crypto from the entire world, all here in the Bahamas in one small space. I mean, the nice thing about it too, not doing it in the middle of New York City or something like that, is that you continually run into the same people over and over, which
Yeah,
fosters like more idea generation and collaborations and stuff of that nature. Um,
absolutely.
which has been very positive. So one thing I'd be curious to ask about this, I know, there's a lot of initiatives you're working on in your role here. Are there any of them that are particularly special to you or that you would like to dive deeper into?
Yes. So they're all special, but the causes that I believe that stand out the most are aligned with the empowerment of women and children. And so we here at FTX have invested quite a bit in programs that elevate women and that also support them and their families. So we've worked on safe houses here in the Bahamas so that persons that need support, need assistance, have a safe haven to go to. We've also worked with the local education ministry so as to be sure that we are providing students and teachers with the resources that are necessary for them to thrive and become our future employees. So I personally have a role and I am engaged in all of the activities that we are a part of because they're so great. And all of the individuals who've benefited from our generosity, from the generosity of Sam through the leadership of Ryan and Constance, are so incredibly grateful. And it's just remarkably heartwarming to see and interact with individuals who are making an even bigger difference because of FTX.
And one of the beauties of having done all of this in the Bahamas is that we can have an outsized impact compared to pretty much any other jurisdiction in the world that we could have done something like this in. So as you were saying, I know there's a lot of different charity initiatives that we're working on. There's also some deeper ones, such as the campus. What's the plan there for the FTX campus?
Yes, so we recently broke ground for the FTX campus. We anticipate that we will see that space realized, I believe, within the next 3 years fully. And so our plan is to have an extraordinary space that is complete with office spaces, dining facilities, some social spaces as well. We also see an environment whereby we would also have access to after school care and elder care for families. We see a space that's going to be a hub of innovation for Bahamian entrepreneurs and also a cultural gallery for individuals who want to showcase their pieces so that the world who's visiting our campus can take full advantage of it. And of course, we also have a boutique hotel that will be on property that will allow for us to host more of our guests literally right on property so that they can access the residential side of the hotel and also the office side where they can join fellow colleagues in working.
So it's kind of an end-to-end full stack campus in that people can kind of have their entire life there and continue to work and be with their colleagues and partners and friends and whatnot.
Absolutely. We hope to have it. We hope to have it all at the campus. And we also hope to continue growing into that space that it really reflects our commitment to be agile and flexible, to meet and exceed the needs of our colleagues and the community at large.
I'm guessing it has to be pretty big with all of these different things that are going to be in it. Do you have a sense of how large the property is where it's going to be built?
We anticipate using 6.5 acres to construct this facility, and it's going to be a remarkable space. We hope to continue to grow, and so we would be able to identify other property nearby. But currently, we have around 6.5 acres that we are wanting to use or to access so as to be able to grow and build our campus.
Got it. Wow. So that's going to be a huge development.
Yes.
And something I've heard too that's actually interesting about the Bahamas, I know a lot of sort of like smaller countries, they import the construction companies that do a lot of this kind of work. But I've heard that here in the Bahamas, there's actually like really good construction companies. Is
Yeah.
that right?
That is correct. And so we hope to capitalize on local labor, local talent, and that will be interspersed with some impressive or incredible international contributors, architects, consultants who are going to help us to really elevate this project in a very meaningful way. So we will have local contractors as best as we're able working on this project. And we will also have members of the international community contribute their best ideas and talents for this impressive space.
And one thing I'm curious about, like this is such a huge project and there's so many different elements, so many moving pieces. What are some systems that you use to be able to organize kind of all the different threads that you have to make sure are continuing?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I think that what I have found to work best is we've got a team of consultants who over communicate around what is happening. We've got project managers who provide a level of update that helps us to appreciate our progress or our challenges. And at the core of it, we hope to continue to have and maintain and nurture good relationships so that everyone involved in this project feels satisfied that their voices are heard, that they have access to the resources necessary so that we can do and build something so great here in the Bahamas that it would be enviable in other parts of the world.
And for you personally, like, do you have any systems that you've created to just keep all these different things organized, or just kind of how your brain works so you can keep everything rolling?
Right. So if I get an idea in the middle of the night, I'm finding that I'm needing to literally type it down or write it down more quickly. I find that when I write things down, I'm more likely to action it. And so my binders are plentiful, and because they just have these random notes all throughout, and it helps me to remember and to take action and to connect the right people to cause things to happen. So I'm a task list, write it out kind of guy. I find that when I have to type my task on my iPad or my iPhone, it doesn't resonate as much as when I write it out and take the time to review it and almost commit it to memory around what needs to be done.
Fair enough. Yeah, I need to work a little bit on this organizational side of things. I just thank goodness for task lists though. But
Yes.
So another thing I've actually worked with you on a little bit are the Crypto Connect events. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you, sort of like what has been done there and what the idea is going forward.
Yes. So Crypto Connect events are designed to bring Bahamians and residents together to hear from subject matter experts such as yourself or others who might exist within the FTX family. What we know is as we bring more people together, they're going to exchange more, better, and bigger ideas. And we also have the opportunity to talk a little bit more thoughtfully about what's happening at FTX and why that should matter to individuals. You would appreciate, Tristan, based on the fact that we had to fly from New Providence to Grand Bahama, that we've got a lot of islands to cover. And our commitment is to continually be on those islands, continually educate and engage Bahamians and residents so that they feel connected to the things that matter most to them. And at this time, Crypto Connect allows for that sense of connection and togetherness in a meaningful way. And I couldn't be more thrilled that you were a part of our initial events. And we look forward to our other colleagues sharing their expertise so that we all show up well to help others in future events.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's really cool just seeing how excited the people here are about crypto and NFTs and blockchain. I think there's going to be like pretty latent demand for people that want to learn about these things. But one thing that you touched on that I think is interesting, and I've just been learning a little bit about, is people think of the Bahamas and they mostly think of Nassau because that's kind of where everyone comes to vacation. They go to these large resorts. But Bahamas actually is like a ton of islands.
Yes.
What's like a good way to think of how all of this is organized? Is it all under one government? Do they have local jurisdictions? Like what's going on?
Yeah, so the Bahamas stretches across 100,000 square miles, and there are 700 islands and 2,000 keys that exist within the chain of Bahamian islands. 49 of those islands are inhabited, and as a result, we have access to quality infrastructure, we have access to government services, medical, emergency, other kinds of services are there. What happens is each constituency, the country is divided into constituencies, and so your community could be represented by a member of parliament, and then you are engaged with that person to understand and talk about what your needs are and how they can help your community to be better. So we've got some local government, we've got members of parliament, all working together to ensure that the needs of Bahamians, residents, visitors are met and addressed in a meaningful kind of way.
And so when we went to visit Grand Bahamas together, you could still see some of the remnants of the terrible hurricane that struck in 2019, Hurricane Dorian, I believe it was called.
Yes.
I know you're originally from Grand Bahamas, which is an island that seems to get hit more than a lot of the other ones when these hurricanes come through. Could you talk a little bit to this and like what it was like growing up in sort of an environment where, you know, during the season, almost at any time, you could have a tremendous storm come through?
Right. So we know that climate change is significantly impacting us. And so we have seen over time hurricanes become more devastating, more deadly than when I was actually a child. What that means is you have to be prepared, right? You have to be prepared during hurricane season. You have to be prepared to be able to bunker down while the storm is passing over. My memories of it included the storm would come, it would wreak havoc, but there was a resiliency, and there is a resiliency amongst Bahamian people that helps us to recover, that helps us to bounce back in meaningful ways. And that is at the heart of how we continue to progress as a country. Whatever the challenge is, whether that is a hurricane, whether that is the impact of financial regulation globally having a negative stain on the country's image, we will always identify the best solutions and bounce back, because that's what resilient Bahamians do on a regular basis.
And something you touched on there, like, yes, it's true. For a long time, people always thought of Bahamas as a place to sort of kind of like offshore your money from around the world. But I know that image has changed a lot as the government's gotten much, much, much more serious on sort of like compliance of funds and things of that nature. Would you mind sharing a little bit kind of like how this perception has been shifting and maybe what it looked like before and what it looks like now?
Yeah, I think our current landscape definitely shows the Bahamas as a compliant and well-regulated jurisdiction. That's why FTX is here, right? So we want to be in a jurisdiction that is regulated. We want to be in a jurisdiction that's compliant. What we also know about the Bahamas is In the past, people used the Bahamas for different kinds of purposes with their finances. Now, with global scrutiny and different reminding and requiring that we account for our funds, that image has shifted, which allows for us to reflect that we are going to report necessary information as requested, and that we're also going to ask people who are doing business in the Bahamas to do it, knowing that we are a compliant jurisdiction, and we will make the necessary reports where it is requested to ensure that we are not negatively impacted based on bad actors who might be in the sector.
Got it. And the big shift there is that with time, companies incorporated here will have much less issues abroad to do business with other companies and stuff, right?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
Got it. And that's something I'm sure, like, to some degree, FTX is working on too, because I'm sure we want to be able to interact with everyone.
Yeah, we do want to be able to interact with everyone. And we also want to be able to say that the Bahamas and Bahamians ask good questions as it relates to how do we stay well regulated? How do we maintain our compliance standards at the highest possible level? So we want to be a good player. And we hope that our cooperation and collaboration with the government is the standard for others to follow as they think of making the Bahamas their home.
And what's your sense on how the government and parliament currently think of cryptocurrencies here in the Bahamas?
Recently, the government of the Bahamas released a white paper that talked about cryptocurrency and digital assets being bold and progressive. But in addition to the commentary in the white paper, they expressed their support, they expressed their willingness to be a good partner, and they also expressed their capacity to understand that this industry moves so rapidly, and we have a responsibility to remain flexible. We have a responsibility to do our part as the government of the Bahamas to create an environment which acknowledges that there may be changes necessary and a willingness to make those changes so that our exchanges and others wanting to do business here in the Bahamas feel satisfied that we are doing our part to keep and maintain the Bahamas as the clear and compelling choice.
And I know that you've been interfacing, especially because a lot of us FTX people hand companies to you that want to come and, spend time or actually move down here to the Bahamas. How's that been? Are you seeing a lot of interest on people, or what's the status?
Yeah, so there's incredible interest, there's incredible enthusiasm that we're seeing as it relates to other entities that want to be here in the country. And I do anticipate that our presence as FTX is a strong reminder that this is a good place to be. I am hopeful that we see more exchanges, we see more digital assets business by the end of 2022, so that we can continue to have more players in a regulated jurisdiction. And the Bahamas can also benefit from the presence of other exchanges and businesses here in the country.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I'm curious to hear, because I'm sure, in your previous work, it was mostly interfacing with people who are a bit more senior, potentially in age, just because that's how the business world usually is. What's been your perception of sort of like working with FTX? I know it's a very different from probably what you were used to before. What's your thoughts on FTX and perhaps the people?
Wow.
Honest opinion.
So we are a young and dynamic organization, right? And that means we move much more quickly than any other organization that I've been a part of. We're also willing to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and try again without giving up. It's a remarkable environment to be a part of, because there's a sense of collegiality, respectfulness, ideas being exchanged, relationships being built, and it's unlike anything ever. And I think that the best way to describe it is that you have to see it in action to believe it. Like, each day is different, more incredible than the next, and each victory is celebrated, and that just rejuvenates you to want to do more and be better. I think it's an incredible space to work out of.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah,
my honest opinion.
I totally agree. Such a blast. I have so many great colleagues. So what's the focus for you, I guess, for this next semester? We're finishing up the first semester of 2021. What are you thinking about for the end of 2021? Or sorry,
Yeah.
2022. Oh my God.
Yeah. So yeah. So we're already looking forward to Crypto Bahamas. We're looking forward to our campus. We're looking forward to identifying new partners that we can support. We're also looking forward to introducing more ways for Bahamians to learn and benefit from crypto knowledge. I think that it's important for us to be able to create opportunities to ignite conversations, to exchange knowledge, and FTX has a big role in that. We're looking forward to building the kinds of teams that are enviable with access to talent that is just world class. When we combine Bahamians with our colleagues from around the world, we can only expect a masterpiece.
Amazing. Good to hear. I have one last question for you, Valdez.
Yeah.
And that question is there any lesson or habit that you've acquired in your life that has allowed you to live a better life?
The lesson or habit that I've acquired that allows me to live a better life is really to make time for the people that you care about. In the chaotic, rushed pace of everything that we do, it's the people who matter. And so whether it's pausing for a moment and inviting you, Tristan, to a drink, whether it's sitting down at a business meal and then talking business and then doing some personal interactions, or whether it's celebrating special moments with family and friends and loved ones, it's the people. People are at the heart of all that we do. And when we value people and give them a seat at your table to feel valued and cared for, incredible things happen minute by minute.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for coming on the FTX podcast.
Thank you, Tristan. It was great to have you. It was great for me to be here with you.
Yeah, great to have you on here.